This is You're Probably Right. Entertainment first, everything else is just bonus. Opinions, all ours. Sometimes backed by research, but never the final word. There are always exceptions, so take it with a grain of salt and a slight dusting of chili powder. If something in this episode resonates with you or you want to reach out directly, you can email the show at yprpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find the podcast on Facebook. Just search You're Probably Right podcast and the page should come up. And if you are listening somewhere other than Spotify, you can find the show there as well. Just search You're Probably Right and follow the podcast so new episodes show up automatically. All right, let's get into it.
Hey, how you doing? This is MCM and you are listening to You're Probably Right podcast. This is episode 324. After the pattern, what healing actually looks like in love. What do I do now? First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to my podcast. Or I should say hi, friend. It's not that many people, really. At least right now. I envision that sometime in the near future, maybe this podcast might be a lot bigger than it is right now. And at this point, I don't really care. So why am I saying that? Because at the end of the day, I'm just talking to you. And hopefully something that I say will hopefully move you in a positive direction. This is a series, so hopefully by the end of the 5 episodes, that there is something that will help you on your journey to healing. First of all, I will say this is not a Christian podcast, but this is a podcast by a Christian who believes in the 66 books of the Bible. Personally, I read a ESV version, if you're wondering. There's a lot to say here today. Something in me wants to just start talking about this on my own without my script, but I'm not going to do that because I'd rather it be organized. But as you know, we're hanging out. You're doing whatever you got to do. Maybe you're on your way to work. Maybe you're stuck in traffic, or maybe it's smooth sailing because nobody's out and it's that early. Or maybe you're coming on from home, or you're coming home from home, or you're coming home from work. Or maybe you're just out for a walk. Or maybe you're just sitting on the couch chilling. Or maybe you're in your bed on the pillow, just hoping to catch some Z's, and for some reason my voice does that for you. Well, I'm glad I can help. Remember, this episode and all my other episodes are for entertainment purposes only. I am not a professor of anything. I'm just a professing Christian, and I'm not a minister, official minister of the gospel. No, I'm not. Just a lowly guy. Lowly. Regular dude. Anyhow, let me get into it. Today, I want to talk about what happens after recognition. Last time, the conversation was about how pain reshapes love, how some people withdraw, how some people control, how some people compensate, how some people lose themselves. And if you haven't seen that episode, if you haven't listened to that episode, well, you could have saw it on YouTube, but you're looking at a static image. But if you've listened to it before, you haven't listened to it before, I suggest maybe go back. Just do this in order, probably would be the best. But I mean, maybe you're already past that and maybe you're here. Either way, I'm happy you're here. So that was the recognition talk. This is the healing talk. Because once people recognize themselves, right, what you do, what it's caused, or what's happened with you, besides the hurt, besides the pain, the next question is, Well, the next question comes fast, really. What do I do with this? How do I heal? How do I heal it? How do I stop repeating it? And how do I change without becoming cold, reckless, rigid, or fake? That is the whole point of this episode. Because recognition, yes, it's important, but recognition alone does not change anything, right? You can name your pattern and still live inside it and just say, that's who I am. That's who I'm going to be. You can understand your wound and still let it organize your relationships. So today, I want to talk about what healing actually looks like in love. Not idealized healing. Not healing as a slogan, because people use it as healing. Not healing as I am above all this now. Real healing. The kind that shows up in text, tone, timing, conflict, honesty, closeness, boundaries, and the way you respond when love starts to feel risky. Let me start with this one sentence. Healing is not becoming impossible to hurt. Healing is becoming less organized around old pain. That is the standard. Not hardness, not perfection, not invulnerability. You're not trying to turn yourself into a Superman or a Superwoman. Nothing can penetrate your shell. But less organized or less organization around fear, less obedience to old injury, less loyalty to protective habits that once made sense but now keep distorting intimacy. And the reason this matters is because a lot of people confuse healing with overcorrection. They think healing means I do not need anyone now. I trust no one now. Nobody gets access now. I will never be caught off guard again. I will never overgive again. I will never care more than the other person again. I feel that. I can tell you that it's always good when I get personal when it makes sense, right? I think sometimes it's embarrassing, I can say honestly, because when you see your patterns, when you see the stuff or the type of person you are after being hurt, and you realize that there is some negativity in some of the things that you do or the things that you plan to do. But then at the same time, you realize why you're doing that and what you're trying to help in yourself, how you're trying to put a band-aid in certain parts of your character, your being, just to protect yourself so it doesn't happen again and you don't have to feel that pain again. That's what it is. Most people just don't want to feel that again. They know how hard it was to go through it in the first place. And they don't want to feel that again. But it's not healing. That is pain getting promoted when you're over, you make all those plans not to overgive and you don't want to care more than the other person. You're just trying to set it up, right? So let's do this carefully. Think about this carefully. I want to walk through the same four patterns before. And listen, let me tell you this, because I'm taking my time with this, guys. This is a long form podcast. It's not a, I always say this, I don't always say this, but it's not TikTok action here. I'm not going to fix your life in 14 minutes or in a minute and 7 seconds with some slogans and some top tens and this is the way you know and yada, yada, yada. And then tomorrow you're back at it again and you can't remember what that person said yesterday, or you remember what the person said yesterday, but the stuff that you heard that was life changing last week, you can't remember it. It's not that kind of show. I take my time because I care, and it's my way to be. If I learn something that makes sense and like I know it brought me through something, then shouldn't I want to pass it on to someone else, or should I just keep it? So I've said to somebody once, and again, I'm veering off it, but I just, I want you to feel like the person behind the podcast. I don't want to just spit a whole bunch of nonsense and then, or sense, and you're just getting information. I could have just made this a post. I could have just put this on my website and just posted it, or I could have written some small little book. But I do this because I don't want other people to feel this as well. I don't want other people to go through this. And I know people are going to go through it regardless. But if I can help somebody not have to go through it, this what I've gone through, or what maybe you've gone through, if I can pass on that information to help somebody, maybe it's not perfect information, but maybe it's something to know that, at least you're not alone. Other people have gone through this as well. Other people are going through this right now as well. And of course, with my mistakes, reading and stuff like that, at least it is 100% a human being talking to you. Anyhow, before I go on, let's get back to this. I want to walk through the same four patterns from before. So there was withdrawal, control, compensation, and losing yourself. But this time I want to ask 4 different questions about each one. What is the pattern trying to protect? What does it cost? What does healing ask you to stop doing? And what does healing ask you to practice instead? Because healing is not just insight. It's not just, oh, I know, oh, I know, oh, I know. Oh, gotta watch out for that. Like you're just dodging landmines. Red landmines and red flags. People have been hurt. A lot of people I've talked to who have been hurt, all they talk about is red flags. That's what it feels like. Oh, that's a red flag. Oh, that's a red flag. Okay. Healing is a practice in the exact place where the old reflex used to take over. That is where change becomes actually real. Because many people say they're healing, or they need to heal. Not even say they're healing. They say they need to heal. They have no idea how to go about it. They either say they need to heal, or they say they're broken and they need to heal. So let's start with withdrawal. Withdrawal is what happens when pain teaches a person that closeness is dangerous. So they protect themselves through distance. They go quiet. They get vague when they speak. They shut down. They become harder to reach. They stay physical. They stay physically present, but emotionally unavailable. Or they leave when things start to get real. What is withdrawal trying to protect? Usually some version of this. Listen. If I let this matter too much, I could get hurt again. If I stay too open, I could get rejected, disappointed, engulfed, humiliated, or abandoned. If I reduce access, I reduce risk. So I don't bring somebody in too close. I don't attach them to my life too much. That is the logic. And some people will say, no, it's other stuff, but I know that's the basics, at least. And if you do not understand that logic, you would try to heal. Withdrawal is. Well, at least you'll try to withdraw in shallow ways, at least, because they're easiest to try to keep up with anyway. You will say things like, just open up more. Just be vulnerable. Just communicate. Sometimes that advice is not wrong. It's just incomplete. Because the withdrawing person is not primarily struggling with technique. They are struggling with threat. So healing has to start here or there. Not by shaming the pattern, by understanding what the pattern still believes it is preventing. Now, what does withdrawal cost? It costs intimacy. It costs reachability. It costs trust. It costs emotional safety for the other person. Yeah, the new person. And often it costs the withdrawing person the very experience that could begin to update their fear. The last pattern matters because withdrawal often protects a person from the very closeness that could gradually teach them that not all intimacy ends in damage. So what does healing ask a withdrawing person to stop doing? It asks them to stop treating activation like proof they need to leave. And that's the key. The moment they feel exposed, tense, flooded, unsure, emotionally cornered, the old meaning is danger, retreat, disappear, ghost. Healing changes the meaning of that moment. It says, this discomfort may not be proof I am unsafe. It may be proof I am near a place I usually avoid. And that's a huge change or a huge shift, as some people would say. So what does healing ask them to practice instead? Well, first of all, not emotional perfection. It's not going to happen. Not oversharing. Not instant warmth. It asks them to practice reachability, presence. And that means staying in the conversation a little longer, telling the truth sooner, saying I'm pulling back right now instead of just pulling back, remaining emotionally accountable when their instinct is to go silent, remaining emotionally contactable when their instinct says, let's go silent. Letting another person know what is happening before distance becomes damage. Let me make it very plain. Sometimes healing for a withdrawing person is one honest sentence, not a breakthrough, not a long speech, one honest sentence. I feel myself shutting down. I want to disappear right now. I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to say. I need a pause, but I'm not leaving. This is getting real, and that scares me. That counts. That is healing. Because the old pattern says withdraw first, explain never. Healing says stay present long enough to tell the truth. Now, what is overcorrection? The overcorrection is forced vulnerability, dumping too much, too fast, trying to become emotionally open on command, confusing exposure with closeness, flooding yourself and calling it growth. That usually backfires. Healing for withdrawal is not flooding. It is a paced presence. So the short form is this. Withdrawal heals by staying present longer than fear wants you to. And that is actual work that you need to do. Control. Control happens when uncertainty feels unbearable. So instead of stepping fully into love, the person manages pace. Let's just take our time with this. Access. Maybe I'll call, maybe I'll text you, maybe not. Timing, power, options. How exposed they are allowed to feel. Control says, if I can manage the conditions, I can reduce all the risk. Now again, this often looks smart. Really does. And that's what makes it slippery. It can look selective, careful, measured, wise, strong, protective even. And sometimes it is. But pain-shaped control is not mainly wisdom. It is fear of powerlessness. It is fear of not having exits, fear of being the one who cares more, fear of choosing fully and then being trapped in the consequence of that choice. So what is control trying to protect? Well, usually uncertainty, helplessness, emotional dependence, the fear of having no backup, the fear of being fully at the mercy of someone else's honesty or inconsistency. What does it cost? Well, it costs mutuality, I guess. It creates relationships where one person is always partly outside the bond, adjusting the terms. And what is wild is because if you've moved on too much or you've moved on without actually healing and you've actually been the other person as well, that's a lot to handle. So the other person may feel, the other person will feel half let in, tested, kept waiting, kept guessing, wanted but not chosen, included, but in no way do they feel secure. Control tries to keep risk low, but it often keeps intimacy low as well. So, what does healing ask a controlling person to stop doing? It asks them to stop using management as a substitute for honesty and say, well, I'm okay. I'm not going to really just tell. I'm not going to be straight up because, you know. So it makes you, it brings lies right in because there's usually stuff you have to hide to do that, right? The key is really stop using management as a substitute for honesty because control often delays the truth. It's just that simple. It keeps extra doors open, keeps feeling ambiguous. It keeps choices provisional, keeps the person in a stronger position against disappointment. Healing says you don't get to experiment mutual love while remaining permanently above it at the same time. And that's the hard truth. So what does healing ask them to practice instead? It asks them to practice cleaner participation, not so messy. That means clearly choosing, straight up. More direct communication, fewer backups, yeah. Less strategic ambiguity, less testing, less using delay as emotional leverage. It means learning to ask, am I being wise right now, or am I trying not to feel vulnerable? That question is gold for controlling people because the person often uses respectable language to hide itself. I'm just trying to take my time. I'm just being careful. I'm just protecting my peace. I'm just not settling. Yeah. Maybe. Sometimes. But sometimes the truth is, I'm afraid of standing in one honest bond without leverage. I need to have some type of leverage. Healing means learning to tolerate that fear without organizing the whole relationship around it. Now, what is overcorrection? The overcorrection is false surrender. Dropping boundaries carelessly, calling impulsiveness growth, collapsing discernment because you are afraid of seeming guarded, asking for trouble. That's not healing. Healing is not becoming naive. Healing is becoming honest enough that fear no longer needs to disguise itself as strategy. Figure out strategies. You call your friends. Should I do this? Should I that? This, that, the other. The short form is this. Control heals by losing the grip without losing discernment. And that's actually movement in the right direction. Compensation happens when pain teaches who I am may not be enough. So the person starts trying to secure love through what they add. They give more, they do more, They provide more, rescue more, solve more, carry more, and perform more. They try to become too useful to lose. Now, this pattern is especially difficult because the world often rewards it. Because people praise the giver. What? They gave you that? Wow. The rescuer? Oh, just in the nick of time, The provider? The dependable one? The one who always comes through? Who doesn't want to be those people, right? So pain can hide inside admiration. And underneath the admiration, the person is often carrying a private fear. If I stop adding value, will I still feel safe? If I'm not useful, what makes me lovable? If I'm not needed, what secures my place? And that's the wound. So what is compensation trying to protect? Usually, fear of not being enough, good enough, fear of being replaceable, the fear that love requires performance, the fear that simple selfhood will not hold anyone loyal to you. So what does it cost? It turns love into quiet transaction. The person may give generously, but inside the nervous system, a bargain has formed. I will do all of this, and maybe then I'll be safe. This is exhausting. And eventually, the person often feels unseen, unrested, used, resentful, praised for what is secretly draining them in many different ways. So what does healing ask them to stop doing? It asks them to stop using giving as proof of your worth. And that's at the heart of it. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you stop helping. Stop being generous. To stop turning generosity into emotional insurance. And guess what? For those of you who know what I'm talking about, it's very difficult. It's very different. So what does healing ask them to practice instead? It asks you to practice allowing instead of constantly earning. Allowing care to go both ways. See that? Allowing themselves to be helped as well. Allowing themselves to be loved where they are not performing. Allowing usefulness to stop being the whole center of identity. This often looks like not rescuing every discomfort, not immediately fixing, not solving before being asked, not offering gifts, labor, advice, or money every time insecurity rises. Pausing long enough to ask, am I doing this from generosity or am I doing this from fear? And that question, it matters so much. You really, really, really gotta try. Because The same outward behavior can come from very different inner motives. You understand? Why are you doing what you're doing? For real. I care about them. Well, they needed it. It reminds me of this story, and I'm probably not going to tell it right, but I'm in no rush. But this guy, apparently, the story says, ran into a building, and there was a baby in the building, and the building was on fire. Now, he runs into the building, everybody's like, no! Oh, what a hero. He goes in, and he comes out. He doesn't come out with the baby. It was too far. Couldn't come out with the baby. Now, let's just say he died in that fire, right? People would say he is a hero because he ran into the burning. Everybody heard the baby crying. He ran into the building. Now, if he didn't come out of the building, we would all say he was a hero. Praise his family, this, that, and the other. He's done so many, you lost your dad or your brother or whatever it is. But when he came out of the building, he came out with a bag of money, no baby. So we realized that, yes, he had the same action. And because he made it out, you found out that he really went in there for the money, not the baby. And he got the money, didn't get the baby. But I'm saying if he had died. Anyways, maybe you don't get it. Listen, as I said, because the same outward behavior can come from very different inner motives. Cooking, it can be love. Let me keep it normal for y'all. Cooking can also be anxiety trying to secure a place. Somebody's heart, keeping them fed, way to his heart, right? Stomach, all that. Giving a gift, it can be affection. Giving a gift can also be panic trying to repair a threatened bond. If you think somebody's pulling away, maybe you buy them something and give them something. They're going to move on to the next one. Helping can be care. Performing something for someone, doing something for someone can be care. But maybe if you think they're angry, maybe you're performing that thing, doing that thing, because you think the bond is going to be broken. So you better figure out something. Helping can also be fair, saying, please let my value keep me safe in this, whatever we're in. That is why motive matters. That was the whole point of that cheesy story I tried to tell. Now, what is overcorrection? Overcorrection is resentment disguised as boundaries. Suddenly becoming withholding, acting like generosity itself was the problem, becoming cold because you are tired of overgiving. Generosity was not the problem. Fear was the problem. Transaction was the problem. Overfunctioning was the problem. So the short form of this is compensation heals by resting from the need to earn what actually should be mutual or what should be actually free. And that's the work. losing yourself, because it happens. Losing yourself happens when pain teaches that authenticity is risky, that being fully real may cost connection. So instead of pulling away, instead of managing, instead of proving value, the person starts adapting themselves. And some people lie. Like, I remember somebody lied to me, and later on, they changed their story and they tried to pretend like the new story was the original story when I know I'm not crazy because I had certain rules or certain terms of engagement, and the story switched up on me, and I was like, wait a second, that's not what you said before. And as a matter of fact, when I called them out on that thing, and don't really argue, we didn't really argue or have any arguments. And when I called them out on it, they actually got angry because they got caught. And I don't know, either they realized that they lied or they forgot what the original story that they told me was. You know what I mean? They shapeshift, right? People please, over accommodate, swallow needs, hide preferences, become easier to keep. This one is painful because it often looks kind. It can look like being supportive, being understanding, being sweet, being low maintenance, being flexible, and being easy to love. And sometimes it's healthy flexibility. But when it's pain shaped, the deeper engine is actually just fear. If I show up fully as myself, this relationship might not work. So, what is the pattern trying to protect? Usually, obviously, abandonment, rejection, conflict, disapproval, the fear that truth will cost love. What does it cost? It costs selfhood. The person stays connected, but becomes harder and harder to find inside the relationship. And eventually, even love starts to feel lonely because the self that is being loved is edited. It's not the same. It's an adapted self, not the full one. And what that creates is anxiety, resentment, confusion, exhaustion, the strange ache of being wanted but not fully known. Right? So what does healing ask them to stop doing? It asks them to stop disappearing in order to preserve the connection. That ain't easy. Right? Sounds simple. It's not. Because for people in this pattern, self-erasure often happens before they even notice it. It happens in the swallowed sentence. Thing that you were gonna say, you kind of bite your tongue. The edited need. There was something that you wanted somebody to do for you, or something you needed, something you desired, but you don't ask. The hidden preference. You'd rather this, but you're not gonna say it because, or it's something you want to happen, so you don't say no for something that you wanted to say no about, or you instantly accommodate for something that you wouldn't normally. So Ealing asks, Ealing, it's funny. Like I'm Jamaican. Well, I am, so. But healing asks them to slow down. All right. So healing asks them to slow that process down, to catch the moment before adaptation becomes your new identity. And what does healing ask them to practice instead? It asks them to practice selfhood in contact. In other words, well, that phrase matters because it's not just selfhood alone. Many people can be themselves alone. The question is, can you stay yourself while staying connected to somebody else? Can you remain present, loving, and real at the same time? It takes maturity. So practically, healing healing looks like this. You're naming a preference that you have, saying what is true sooner, letting disappointment exist without instantly reshaping yourself to remove it, having a boundary before resentment arrives, staying emotionally identifiable inside the bond. A good question for this pattern is, what am I not saying because I am afraid it will change how I'm held, how I'm cared for, how I'm looked at? That question reveals a lot. Some people hide their religion. Some people hide what they really want to eat. Some people hide what they really want to do. Some people hide all kinds of things. Because self-loss usually begins where truth gets swallowed. Get it? Some people will say, well, I didn't lie. No, I haven't been lying. I just haven't been totally upfront, but I haven't been lying. Now, what is overcorrection? The overcorrection is defensive selfhood, becoming sharp, rigid, unyielding, performatively independent. That's not healing. That's backlash. Healing is not becoming impossible to affect. Healing is becoming solid enough that you do not need to actually disappear in order to stay connected. So the short form of this is losing yourself heals by returning to self without abandoning the connection. You're not abandoning. I mean, somebody might abandon the connection, but you got to be you. Take those masks off. 8.3 billion of us on this planet. And that is moving in the right direction. And you might say, well, what is my last chance? Well, the longer you lie and stay in bad connections, the less chances you're going to get where you're supposed to get to. What healing is often confused with? People sabotage their own healing by misreading it. Withdrawal gets confused with healing when someone says, I'm healed because I need no one now. That's not healing. That is distance with a diploma, if anything. Control gets confused with healing when someone says, I'm healed because nobody can ever get the upper hand on me again. And trust me, I've had that plan. Had that plan, as someone would say. That's not healing. That is fear with better language. And here's the joke. When it says you get to truth early, I can honestly say personally, because again, I want people to be healed and I want you to feel to fix your situation in the right way. We can do the same thing, but for the wrong reasons. I remember when I was, trying to figure out a situation, I thought that maybe, well, I don't even know if I was trying to figure out the situation, but I think I was. But what I was doing was I was being over revealing. I was telling the truth, bam, in your face, kind of, um, and seeing how it lands and seeing how it stuck. So my thing was I would lead with the most horrible thing about me and see what the person thought because I was scared. I was like, okay, well, I have nothing invested over here. So I can just slap them with the truth. And if it sticks and they don't think it's that bad, maybe they've done some stuff too. They might not think about my skeleton in the closet. And if it's okay, then we can hang out because I've already said the worst of the worst. See, there's a lot of things you can do. Even things that I'm saying here, you can do them, but you can do them for the wrong reasons and you're still hiding and you're still in fear. Losing yourself gets confused with healing when someone says, I am healed because I no longer care what anyone feels. That's not healing. That's defensive numbness. Real healing does not make you less human. It makes you less ruled by old injury. And that's the difference. So the better test is not, do I feel stronger? The better test is, am I more honest? As I said, I was honest, but I did it for the wrong reasons, I think. But I was slick with it. Am I more steady? More reachable? Do I have more boundaries without becoming cruel? Am I more open without becoming naive? Dumb? Dumb decisions? Am I more real without disappearing? That's a much better standard. What healthy love starts to look like after pain? Hopefully, this is the part that's hopeful for you. After withdrawal, healthy love looks like presence. Not flooding, presence. After control, healthy love looks like mutuality, reciprocal lifestyle with someone. Not chaos, mutuality. After compensation, healthy love looks like reciprocity, as I was saying. Not passivity, reciprocity. After losing yourself, healthy love looks like selfhood in contact. Not hardness, selfhood in contact. And one important thing here is healthy love after pain often feels less dramatic than unhealthy love. That's hard for some people because it's probably going to feel slower. It's going to be less intoxicating than it was with that other person. It's going to be less extreme. Connection is going to be there. Less like constant uncertainty and adrenaline. You will know where they are. They won't be gone for 3 weeks. Hey, what's up? That doesn't mean it's less real. It often means your nervous system is no longer mistaking activation for depth. And that's a very important distinction. Just because you're not hyperventilating over a person, it doesn't mean that your love and your connection isn't real. A lot of people do not miss toxic intensity because it was good. They miss it. Well, they don't miss it because it was good, but they miss it because it was familiar. It was something that they were used to, having the volatility, the craziness, the arguments, the how come you haven't called me in 4 days? Oh, you just want stuff from me, but you don't care. Yada, yada, yada. Nah. Healing includes learning not to confuse familiarity with truth. Just because you're used to it doesn't mean that's the truth and the way it's supposed to be. The real question. So if the first talk asked, what pattern am I in? This one asks, what am I practicing instead? When I want to withdraw, what am I doing instead? When I want control, what am I practicing instead? When I want to earn, what am I practicing instead? When I want to disappear, what am I practicing instead? Because healing is not only being aware of what's wrong or what you're doing or what patterns you're following or what family of things are you falling into. I would encourage you to go back to the first episode if you're still kind of struggling with some of this. So this episode should have made last episode a little bit more clear for you. One clearer sentence, one slower reaction, one truth told sooner, one rescue withheld. You could have fixed it. Just let it go. One no spoken cleanly. One moment of staying present instead of becoming the pattern again. That is how change starts becoming visible. It's not a grand new reinvention. It has like a different move in an old moment. And that's how you start doing things. And listen. So let me leave you with this simplest version that I can. You do not heal by shaming that actual pattern that you do, shaming yourself because of it. You don't heal by pretending that you're past it and you're beyond it. You don't heal by becoming harder than it. You heal by understanding what it protected. You heal by grieving why you needed it. It's okay. You can cry. And practicing something truer in the same place it used to take over. Remember something, guys, and it's not because I'm a glutton for punishment and I'm not like a sadomasochist or anything like that and saying you should just take it, but if you close yourself off to pain, you're destined to feel it in the end. It reminds me of scripture in the Bible, but I don't want to use it in the wrong place. Yes, I won't. So those of you who are Christians, you probably, it's possible it might have popped up in your head too. When you're hiding from something, usually it finds you. Kind of reminds me of that movie, La Bamba. Dude was always scared of flying. Yeah. Withdrawal heals by staying. Stay. Control heals by giving it a little rein, loosen up. Compensation heals by just resting. Don't do anything. Losing yourself heals by returning to yourself. I used to lose myself in the moment. You gotta let it go. You only got one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. Just saying. It's funny. Listen, none of that happens all at once. It happens with repetition. So you start today and you continue. And if you slip up, continue. Not slipping up, but continue where you left off. One honest sentence sooner, one less disappearing act, one less test. Yeah, you can test it. I'm going to test you. What do you say about this? What do you say about that? One less performance, one more clear boundary, one more true preference, one more moment of remaining real when fear tells you to become that pattern again. And don't think because maybe you're able to throw a boundary on somebody over here because you look at them as less than that person over there where you weren't able to put that boundary on. Well, you're lower, so I think I can throw it on you. You're still trying to wiggle things around, and you're probably going to throw some lies over there. And I would assume if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, that's not small. That is how people stop making new love pay for old pain. And that in the end is what healing is. Not becoming impossible to hurt, becoming honest, steady enough, free enough that pain no longer gets to organize the whole new relationship. The wound might be old, might have been an old situation in the past. The pattern may be current in something that you're doing right now, but the pattern is not permanent if you don't want it to be. Anyhow, guys, till next time, until the next episode, chill to the next, no. Next episode, what healthy love feels like after pain. I think that should be a good one. Anyhow, y'all, as I said before, and as I will say after I'm done here and you'll hear the recording, if you can, please like, follow, share, please. I'm trying to bump this thing up. I'm trying to listen. I love talking to just you and you. But if I can get out some of this farther, reach more people, it, even though it is worthwhile, if I'm just talking to you, it's cool. And I'm happy I can help you, but maybe I can also help somebody else as well. So that's what I'm asking you to share. If it sounds like, I'm finally getting there with these episodes and starting to get clearer, because I understand sometimes like one episode, I called it ruminating at the end of it because I realized I was going in circles. I wasn't really getting anywhere. I was kind of like living in like, yeah, I was like kind of dwelling in the mire of what happened and how bad it kind of tripped me out. I said, understand that when I'm doing these episodes, sometimes I'm literally just working through something myself. One day my grandkids are going to look at or listen to these and they're going to be like, man, grandpa. But hopefully I have grandkids, you know what I mean? But even my kids, like, I'm not perfect. I never pretend to be perfect with my kids. Somebody told me I tell them too much and this, that, and the other, but I've always tried to be straight up with my kids, as honest as I could be at the level that they are at, right? So I'm not telling a 5 or 7 year old that my girlfriend, like, yeah, no, none of that stuff. What I'm saying is I just try to be upfront and straight up anyway. So nothing's going to be like a crazy shocker. And hopefully, when I tell my kid what I used to do in school and how good or how bad I used to do and why it was good or why it was bad, I'm teaching them to be different than me. I'm not hiding it, pretending that I was a straight A student when I was lucky if I was getting a C in some classes. You know what I mean? I just straight up. And then when your kid sees it, like, well, yes, this is why I need to do it this way instead of that way. So I'm just telling you guys that I'm being as straight up and as honest as I can be. I'm trying to help you out. And at the same time, I'm working out some stuff in my own mind as well. So anyhow, until next time, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I really do. If you could drop me a line on my email, it's yprpodcast@gmail.com. If you got something to say. If you don't, then I don't expect you to email me. I'm just, it's an opportunity for you to connect with me if you want to in some way, shape, or form. And as I said, I appreciate the listen, stream, or whatever. Please share it. Please follow. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 ducks. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.